The domains in our life about which we have a choice are also dramatically increasing beyond what anyone would have ever expected. I wonder if you could talk a little bit about what that's doing to the American, let's say, as he or she goes through his or her day.
So, I mean, today we have choices that were unimaginable not too long ago, right? So we can choose our careers, our spouses, where we want to live, how we want to schedule our entertainment, which one of the whole bunch of jams we want to spread across our toast. The average American grocery store has 45,000 products in it. Amazon.com has over 27 million books. If you want to find a soulmate, you now go on Match.com, and it's over 15 million date possibilities. So we have a new way of finding our soulmate. When you go to the store, you don't just get to buy clothes, but you can literally go shop for your eye color. You can shop for what kind of a body you want. You can go on the internet and create a fake identity and create your own brand of who you're going to be and how you're going to be known. I mean, we've got all kinds of choices today that range from the trivial to very, very, very consequential.
So in what you just said, it makes me think about some recent discussions we've had about decision fatigue, about how the number of choices you make earlier in the day and the complexity of that likely has an impact on the quality of the choices that you're making later in the day, or perhaps in the level of stress that you're experiencing as you're making choices later in the day. I wonder if you might talk a little bit about your recommendations related to the number of choices we should make and how we might be able to structure our days so that we're making less of them, or that we're making the right kinds of choices, the choices where our mental effort can really add value.
I think we ought to acknowledge that the act of choosing is not something that's innate to us. It takes effort. So studies show, by Roy Baumeister and colleagues, if I make you choose a whole bunch of things, first I have to choose from this, then make this choice, then make this choice, then make this choice, go on and go on, what happens is you get depleted. Your ability to deal with stress, your ability to deal with the complexities of life actually goes down. And we've got lots of studies to show that, because choosing takes mental energy. Now, what I always say when I do seminars on how to choose, how to change the way you think about choice in your everyday lives, is I say, let's acknowledge the fact that most of your life has been pre-decided, right? It's habits that have decided what you're going to choose, norms. You let other people make the decision, etc. Let that happen. Ask yourself, when you're asked to make a decision, is this worth making? Or is this distracting me from my larger goals? That's a very important habit to have, because in the end, if you are going to get the most from choice in your life, you want to save your choosing energy for the most important choices to you. And so I always practice the motto that says to get the most from choice, you must be choosy about choosing.
I wonder, is that kind of preparation something we should be thinking about providing children very early on? And is it at some point, or is it just too late for adults to rethink or reposition the way that our mind deals with these kinds of choices?
So I think there are many theories out there about what constitutes the most important job of a parent. My theory about parenting, which probably won't surprise you, is that I think the most important thing we can do for our kids really is to teach them how to choose, and that was something that I felt was a very important job. And I think you have to start early. It doesn't mean that when a child is 2, you show them 100 different cereals and say, which one would you like? They actually aren't prepared and capable of making that choice. It's gradually teaching them how to choose. So you start by getting them to first choose, A or B. And then explain why A, why not B. Then it's, okay, understand the consequences of A or B. You gradually make the choices more and more complicated.
So in your book, you suggest that it's not always, in fact, many times it's not in our own best interest for us to make the decisions that affect our health or our lives. For one, we often make errors, but even in cases where we end up making the right choice, sometimes the stress of that decision may not be worth the control we experienced. However, we as Americans are very hesitant, very reluctant to give up control, particularly in a decision that affects our life. How do you reconcile how do you reconcile that challenge with such a strong cultural predisposition?
Yeah, that's a great question. I do think as Americans we have to rethink our narrative around choice, because choice has become more complex than our narrative allows. So let me take a simple example. Like somebody, let's take an old person who has Alzheimer's. That person believes that fundamentally, let's say that person fundamentally believes that he has the right to his individual freedom, and that he should be allowed to live his life as long as he can in the way he wants. So we are then, as a society, reluctant, say, to take away his car keys, for example, because that's a violation of his independence. And yet, him driving on the road poses a threat, not just to him, but to other people. It's an example of how what you're pitting there is individual dignity / freedom, that narrative, versus, well, I mean, there's the health thing. I mean, we didn't have to worry about this years ago, right? So I think that's a narrative we have to think about. Another narrative we have to think about is somebody feels that they've gone to the point in life where they are ready to go. They don't want quantity of life. They want quality of life. Right now, our narrative says that life is so priceless that anybody who would choose to give it up is clearly not making a sanely done choice. This cannot be a rationally made choice. And what's interesting about that narrative is it gets contradicted by other narratives that we have going on in our society simultaneously. So I say to you in this culture, you cannot rationally choose to die, but you can rationally choose, what gender you're going to be, or what the genetic makeup of your child is going to be. So I think if we are going to give people the right to choose how they will enter this world, we're going to have to also rethink if we're going to give them the right to choose how to exit this world. Right? So we either have to trim down our narratives or we have to expand them.